Welcome back to the Tailosive EV pod. That feels weird not having Drew say that. Anyways, welcome back. How's it going, everyone? It's me, Mike. How's it going? I've said that twice now. As you can tell, I'm not used to introducing the podcast, but thankfully, I'm not alone in this. I've got the one, the only, Randy Vasquez helping me out carry this wonderful podcast that's been around for, what is it, like 3 years now?
Let me tell you something. First of all, I was not going to interrupt you the way I was interrupted for the tech, but then I realized the fact that I wasn't talking, you were slowly crashing. I'm like, should I chime in? No, I'm going to let this one ride out.
Well, thank you for letting me crash, Randy. I appreciate it. What didn't crash, I don't know if you noticed from... was it yesterday's earnings call for Q4 of Tesla's earnings? Nothing crashed there, thankfully. Well, maybe the stock did. I didn't really pay attention to the stock. But there was a lot of cool tidbits of information from it, which I think were pretty neat. I don't know. Did you catch it?
My version of catching it was being on Twitter and watching Sawyer just give updates that way.
Oh, yeah. Sawyer's a pretty good source for like just telling you everything.
Does he like to tell me a lot, which I don't mind. I tease about it because like my open Twitter and it's just him all the time. But I'm like, at the same time, I like catching the information, especially when it's like earnings call. And I knew I wasn't going to catch it in live time. But yeah, no, just to answer your question, the stock is doing great. I wish Drew was here for us to talk about this because being a Tesla shareholder as well, I have not fully, but I've completely bounced back from that colossal failure of a drop in the stock that was at the end of the year. I am now net positive again, so I'm like, woo! And so, yeah, earnings did great, and I liked just what I was reading with the recaps again with Sawyer, what he was talking about. It's cool seeing just the what was it? The timeline of what they're expecting to do. And maybe this is boring, but I'm kind of excited about Nevada. I don't know why, but like that kind of excites me.
Nevada's pretty cool. I'm glad that they're finally finishing up the factory there, even though like they advertised it. I think Elon said like 10 years ago or something like that the factory's been around, which is kind of crazy to think about. But like it's only been basically that kind of L-shaped factory maybe for like the past 5 years or 6 years or whatever, but it's been stuck like that for a while, and finally they're like, all right, we're gonna put another L in here so it makes it like a rectangle or something like that. So we've got 4680 cells being made there, which I guess that makes sense for a place that also makes other batteries, along with semis as well, having a dedicated area where they're going to build the semis, which then makes me think, is this kind of like a Tesla Roadster / like Model S scenario where like it was kind of in the corner of the factory and they had some machines rolling to like get some of the product out with the semi? It was kind of just like, yeah, we're kind of piecemealing it together over here. You guys do all like the fun battery stuff over there for the 2170s, but we're going to try to build a semi in the corner. Where does this piece go again? Stuff like that.
You know what gets me excited about Nevada though? Maybe I might be wrong or off step for thinking this, but like I like how each factory has its own like identity about its function, its purpose. There is no two factories are I mean, it could be a failure in the sense that like, oh, we don't want this factory to go down because then we'll have issues. But you know, with Fremont being the only, like, that was the workhorse there for a long time. Poor Fremont, man. You know, they were pushing them suckers out, and then we get Texas online, and now it's like, this is our Model Y hub. Focus here. And it's like Nevada would have its, like, each factory and factories to come too will all have its own identity, its own personality about its like core function. Because how cool would it be that this is like 20 years down the road, or maybe even 50, so maybe after I'm dead, who knows? But how cool would it be that so many factories are just in the US alone?
How old is Randy, everyone?
I'll be long gone, man. I'm an old man now. But imagine having like a model, even new models. Just points like you have a dedicated model being made out of one factory here on the West Coast, and then you have another one East Coast, and they both are doing the same thing. Kind of like how Austin is the halfway point, and it can just sprout out with the Ys. Imagine that, but just more redundancies in place with more factories, and that work, that catalog of back orders not only obviously get caught up in the future, but so much more room for like now doing new things and getting excited again. Obviously, right. we want the Roadster, and at this rate, maybe it will be 20 years from now. But we want the Roadster. We want new stuff as well. But the fact that Nevada is not being neglected gets me excited. The fact that the stock is doing well now gets me excited.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I do think I like the idea that each factory kind of has its own identity, because I agree, they do. Texas, Berlin, Shanghai, Fremont, and Nevada. And let's not forget New York as well. New York's there too with all the solar. And then also Lathrop is kind of there as a special mention with the megapacks and all that. But I like that they have their primary goals and then their like secondary goals. Like the primary goal for Giga Texas right now is Model Ys. And their secondary goal is, I guess currently right now, let's get Cybertruck rolling, but also get 4680s rolling, where kind of like what we have on Cato Road right by Fremont, you've got the dedicated, what used to be kind of just like office space, and then maybe we're tinkering with some technology for batteries. Now they're like, we're the workhorse for batteries, where you have factories like Nevada who are like, we do batteries, but on the side we're making like semis and also 4680s. Although I guess the 4680s kind of fill into like the 2170s, like making batteries as their primary goal. Anyways, I like that they all kind of overlap in their own way. So that way, if one has to retool a certain way, kind of like how Giga Texas, something that we learned is still kind of running on one of their 4 4680 lines right now, still trying to get that running and get it down to a good cost of production, or basically just decreasing the production, or sorry, increasing the production amount, but decreasing the cost of that production amount, is a smart idea. But for right now, you've got places like Cato Road and in the future, Nevada to help supplement that supply of 4680s. I think is a really cool tactic that they're exploiting in a way with these factories.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I like that little overlap too. So, maybe I need to jump back on Twitter again. Something I remember seeing.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying Sawyer tweeted something during the earnings that caught my eye, and I'm spacing on the moment, so I'm gonna try to pull it up.
I've got a whole bunch of index cards with like all my notes from it while I was listening to it.
Nice.
I guess while you're looking for that, something that they initially said, like for every 2 Teslas ordered right now today, they're producing 1. So it's a 2x type of scenario with being able to satisfy that many orders, which is great because they still have a backlog, and it's I think that's a healthy backlog, that there is still demand, but it's not like a crazy amount to where like they're over encumbered and they can't figure out what to do, to where they're like, okay, we can figure this out. We already know people are mainly buying Ys, so let's just build Ys everywhere that we can, and hopefully we can manage that. But they can still rely on 3s from Shanghai and Fremont to satisfy all their orders. But along with that, their new focus on that the price really matters is something that I quoted Elon Musk on. Is now something that they're focused on, just because he seems to think that we're going to be jumping into a not so fun recession in the near future. And so they're kind of focusing on, okay, well, let's bring the price down and let's see if we can try to get, where did I write it down? Basically, that the deflation in the input cost is likely to happen with this recession, which means that they're still going to get back to that better margin that they had initially before they cut prices, because the cost of components is going to go down due to, well, the price or the value of the dollar and many other currencies going down in this recession. Or is that how it goes? I'm not a financial guy. I'm an engineer. So, if I'm wrong, feel free to call me out. I'd love to be educated.
So here's something that caught my eye, and it was a retweet that I saw, and maybe I didn't dig hard enough. What is this hardware 3 and hardware 4 retrofit? No, it's not gonna happen. What? Talk to me about that.
Right.
Does that affect me?
So what they highlighted, in which I wrote this down as well, is that hardware 3, of course, is not going to be as good as hardware 4. And it seems what they alluded to, or what they were saying, is that hardware 4 will be in Cybertruck, and it'll probably be in their next generation platform, whether it's the Robotaxi and whatever else that comes from that, because they also said products. They didn't say just product, alluding to the Robotaxi. It sounds like there's going to be either multiple types of Robotaxis or something else aside from Robotaxi that's not Roadster that's going to have hardware 4 in it. But getting back to your question, for hardware 3, of course, it's not going to be as good as hardware 4, but it's still going to be like 200 to 300% safer than average human, or at least that's what their goal is. And of course, from our experience, we found that it's safe, kinda. It makes very interesting choices, but at least it's like confidently uncertain, which means it's somewhat cautious at times.
Confidently uncertain, that's the word.
Yeah. So what they also commented is that there's not going to be a retrofit for like Model 3s and Model Ys to get hardware 4. At least what they're thinking about and planning right now. Oh well. So
fine.
Which kind of a bummer, whatever.
All right.
But they kind of reassured in saying like it doesn't mean that it's going to be less safe or that they're not going to keep on supporting it. It just means that's just reality, right? You can't keep on updating the iPhone 3GS to like iOS 25 or whatever. Like it doesn't make sense.
I'm a different man now, Michael. I don't really care about the hardware that much anymore. You know, I don't see myself using FSD really going forward that same way. Only when I'm alone in the car will I be a little daring about it. But hardware 3 and 4, I will let slide because I think I'm just over it. I have faith. I mean, I saw that he talked about the autopilot team and all that stuff and how he was with them. Like, I have faith that they're doing great things. It's no longer my cup of tea anymore. One other thing that I wanted to bring up from the earnings call here, just because you said you wrote it down, Mike, so I want you to hold me and or Drew accountable here. Did Elon not say let me find the word here. Volume production of Cybertruck 2024? And did I not say not 2023 or end of 2023, but 2024 volume production? Am I on track to being right? Called it.
It seems like it. They seem to definitely put a spotlight on the fact that early production, or whenever initial production starts on the Cybertruck, and they presume it's going to be during the summer, because it seems like they're getting the Idric casting gigapress tuned, or at least they built, and now they have to tune it and all that. Even when they start making Cybertrucks, it's going to be super slow, but they did emphasize that it's going to be, I think, exponential in a way. It's the next one after that's going to be a little bit quicker to make, and the next one after that's going to be a little bit quicker to make. But that doesn't mean that these Cybertrucks that they're making initially are going to be customer intent products. They're not going to go. If you're watching, Drew.
Oh, he's going to watch. His pride will make him watch this part. If not, somebody has to clip this out and send it to him. 2024 from the man himself, which means not only am I right, but I want to almost revise my statement to push it out even further than what he's saying. I'm already in the lead. I'm just saying, I'm already in the lead.
So now you're just going to rub more dust in his eyes.
I just said that, like, if he's saying 2024, then maybe, maybe just a little bit.
Oh, no. So you're thinking, like, the end of 2024 is when, like, we get close to
Listen,
like a
that's
decent amount of Cybertrucks being made per week.
I don't know, Mike. I don't want to make any. It's over a year now, and I don't have that headspace anymore. But my gut told me 2024, not 2023. And now that he's saying volume production, which is more important, won't happen until 2024. I kind of want to say, listen. I want to be wrong. Overreach, like under promise, over deliver. I want that version.
Mm-hmm.
But man, does history paint a different story here? But all right, be that as it may. I just wanted to bring highlight to that.
Yeah, so it seems like the team for Cybertruck and also Elon also expect that it's not going to be, I think, what was the quote? Something like Cybertruck won't be a big contributor in 2023, where 2024 will basically be the year for it, for like actually producing Cybertrucks, which seems understandable. I think I agree with that statement. I do agree with that statement in terms of like manufacturing a mass market truck that has so many orders, even if, like Drew has said in the past, even if like 90% of people drop their order, there's still 10% of how many orders that they have, which is known to be a crazy amount, still left to satisfy or to deliver for. So
I just want pricing at this point. Just show me the prices. What's the configuration? What are we working with? I just want to know what my free $100 interest-free loan. What did that go to? How am I getting gypped now?
Right.
I'm joking. I everyone knows, they should know what giving money to the company means, but if not, like, I just hope that we just get something of it. Because at this point, I mean, we've talked about this. At this point, I think Brittany has already given up. She's like, I'm not holding my breath for no Cybertruck anymore. Like, she's like, is that thing still in production? I don't know anymore. So, it's
like, hilarious how similar our wives are, Randy, because my wife is very much the same. She's like, we just have to wait and see what's going to offer. And what you're telling me is it's going to be a quad motor that's going to get not much range and it's going to be super costly. So I'm not interested in that. I'm like, I agree. And with the Ram kind of deflating our hopes and expectations for a electrified Ram truck, we're kind of like, well, this kind of puts it into perspective of like, we don't need an electric truck right now. We just got a nice 2019 Ram Classic that like we got at
now that we got
price.
That bum Drew off the show, we could right. We don't need. He's like, don't tell me if you get a non-EV. Like, no,
right.
This is life, man. We gotta talk about it. Our wives outrank us.
Yes. Do you think it's a 50-50? No. It's like a 90-10. 90 not being on our side, and that's okay. We joke, but
my son has a higher ranking than I do at this point. It's whatever he needs, whatever works for his thing.
It's like 80, and then like 80% your wife, and then 10%. No, 15%. It's
85%. 85%. Okay, 80% wife, 15% son, 5% me, loser.
Yeah.
My point being that that's how far we are now. Will be 4 years, over 4 years since Cybertruck was done. Somebody went to high school hearing about the Cybertruck and they're graduating still with no Cybertruck. Like, somebody started their post grad and is graduating, and throughout that whole time, no Cybertruck. Like, somebody joined the military and said, I'm not re-enlisting and getting out, and still no Cybertruck in between that time. Like, what I'm getting at is we went a long time where, in this household, at least I can only speak for this household, we've kind of lost our not our patience, just like, sure, it's coming. It doesn't matter anymore, So I'm glad there's at least some updates on it, but at this point, I do not equate Cybertruck with Tesla. They have to deliver it just for the sake of being done with it and moving on. And
right, move on to the robotaxi.
Move on to the robotaxi.
Yeah. So that was kind of, well, it made sense. I'm glad that they kind of put it out there. Like they acknowledged that, yes, we're making Cybertruck this year, but it doesn't mean everyone gets their Cybertruck this year. It means maybe like a few people get their Cybertruck, and by a few, maybe like in the hundreds or like maybe the thousands, maybe if they're like on top of it. But otherwise, it's next year when it breaks like the thousands and further than that. But it seemed like they were focused a lot on energy storage stuff, along with Dojo implementation finally happening probably later this year, along with possibly making about 2 million cars in 2023, which cool. Yeah. It kind of shows you how far we've come with Tesla already. Like it didn't seem like that long ago that they made the millionth Model Y, or the millionth, like just millionth Tesla in general, I should say, actually, not the millionth Model Y, but the millionth Tesla in general. Now we're in 2023 and they're like, yeah, we're going to make like 2 million this year. It's like, what? What year is it again?
Now would be a time, not financial advice, please don't sue me, blah, 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 blah. But if you hold the stock, don't sell it. I don't rephrase, because it's not financial advice. I'm not going to sell this year. I thought about it. But then after the earnings, I was like, nah, you know what? I already gave him at least $100 for a reservation I'm never going to fulfill. So, like, at this point, I think what I liked about yesterday's earnings, from my recap of me just reading up on the notes, I like hearing more attainable goals that are outside of just like a product in general. For example, the factories, or maybe even fulfillment. It's like, hey, we're gonna be able to sell this much. Like that means you're gonna have your factories online working that hard. Yes, cool. Working on Cybertruck. Okay, cool. Semi's doing its thing now. I appreciate the nuances of what we're focusing on, but the fact that like at the end of the day, brass tacks, when the dollar hits the pavement here, we care about the product. And they can fulfill 2 million in 2023. Like that's some serious money. And context again, very little debt. Extremely. The company's profitable. Overall, what I'm trying to say is that I like when Tesla does their earnings like this, where they can like give macro scale like information. Like I felt like. Not things in the past where they were so hyper focused on something, but maybe it's me. Maybe it's me as an investor or as just a fan that like I care more about the bigger picture. I'm not fixated on Cybertruck anymore. I'm not fixated on Semi, maybe because it's it's being delivered now. But Roadster, all that stuff, like the nuances of that stuff doesn't really have my ears shoot up anymore. More so than like production line, extending or completing the factory. Just, big picture mission statement type of stuff. That's the stuff that gets me excited about the company. Because I'm like, all right,
definitely.
Yeah.
Me too. I think this was a very quaint and pleasant earnings call. It wasn't really played with much besides like maybe one or two wonderful statements on Twitter. But besides that, it was very much just like, yeah, things are going good. Here's what we have planned. Here's our realistic goals. Any questions and all that. And it seemed like a lot of their initial statements covered a lot of investor and other shareholder questions that people had after the fact. So like a lot of them were like, what are you going to do for this? Or like, what can you expect for this year in terms of production and all that? And they're like, yeah, I guess we already answered that. Next one. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're being very efficient with this.
That's what I like about it. Efficiency.
Call. Yeah. So that was cool. Besides that, I guess I forgot to mention that I got to test drive a few cars over the break and recently, in which I think I've mentioned off air. But in terms of on the podcast officially, I think this would be the first time that I'm bringing it up.
Did you touch a steering wheel or did you touch a yoke?
I touched an egg. as many people spell it. Yeah. And my goodness, am I pleasantly surprised with the yoke.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I got to test drive the new Model S. They finally are test drivable. Believe it or not, you can go check out your nearest showroom, and they probably have one. If not, then there's one at your nearest metropolitan city and all that. But yeah, got to test drive one at Santana Row in the Bay Area. If anyone knows about Santana Row, it's like one of the most frequented showrooms that Tesla has in the whole entire United States. But I got to test drive one. They somehow messed up with like my not reservation, but my test drive request. They thought I was test driving a 3. I'm like, I've already test driven a 3. I want to test drive a
Please,
S.
I have a Y. I need something better now.
Basically, they're talking to me like, they were, I guess, fast forwarding a little bit, they're ushering me into the S, and they're like, so see, what you're going to do is this. I'm like, oh, I already know. I don't know why. And they're like, well, hold on. It might be a little bit different now that there's no stocks. I'm like, oh, that's right. So there was a little bit of a learning curve, but we got to go in. My wife accompanied me. I think I'll probably put some B-roll here that I took or that my wife took while I was driving it. But very weird not having turning stocks. It felt very like naked at first. Like, ooh, how do I shift backward and forward? And like you would like do the whole like screen shifting backward and forward. And then you just be like, wait, where's the park button? Because sometimes the park button doesn't show up. So that was a little bit of like, this is kind of annoying, but I guess you have to get used to it and figure out, oh, this is when it wants to be put in park.
Oh, no.
Who knows?
So the automation didn't work?
It was troublesome for me in like the learning curve of getting into this car and knowing how to put it in park easily. Another way I could have done it is use like the little... I'll call it Prindle because I watched The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody when I grew up. But the park reverse neutral, well, I guess there's neutral and drive and all that, but there's no low. But I could have used that. I didn't use it because I wanted to make a point that I wanted to use it as it's intended with just like either the computer guessing whether we're going backward or forward, along with guessing, I think, either when you park or anything else like that. But otherwise...
Survey?
It was decent and it was fun driving it. Specifically, having that large of a screen was really cool. Just how big it was, and it also had the tilt feature. This was one of the new updated ones that is the screen tilt, and it tilts very far. The videos don't do it justice. Even in the video that I think that I took, it did not do it justice. Like it is sticking out far, like almost like Corvette far, to where like it seems like you're like in your own little cockpit. With your 2 screens in a way, and then
take that semi,
right? Yeah, kind of, yeah. And then it going flush, it felt like it was going very far back and deep, like to where like I was having to reach a little bit to like tap on stuff if it was flush. And then tilting over to my wife, we didn't really use that one much because she was mostly videoing and just experiencing the car with me. But what I did notice initially was when I got in, it felt like the seat didn't go far enough forward. I'm like, this is weird. Why isn't it like tilting up forward or more upright? And I realized that's just the difference between a Model S and a Model Y is that the Model S, of course, lower ride height, but also just like it's a sedan versus a crossover. And the crossover, you can sit a little bit more upright in it, and the seat moves a little bit differently compared to the S, which was... At first, I'm like, it won't go forward. Is this broken? And I realized, oh no, this is where you sit when you drive. And what you do is you bring the yoke to you, and the bottom seat is kind of what you adjust a little bit.
But isn't the Y designed the same as the 3? Like, don't we have the same adjustments, or is yours more forward?
I'm not too sure. It's been a while since I've been in a 3, but I can say
I'll answer that for you. No, I don't really know, but I remember I configured the Y that I test drove, and it because I like to sit forward because of my height. I like to see over more.
Height efficiency. Remember height efficiency.
Thank you. I'm a very efficient man. I could do the same with less. Take that however you want. So, all right.
Oh,
anyway.
no. Don't show me your yoke.
Oh God. No, I'm not talking about my yoke. I'm talking about my anyway. So I remember the wife adjusting the exact same way I would adjust the 3, but I've never driven an S. So maybe it's an S feature thing. Regardless, I have a quick question before you continue. Did your wife drive it at all? What is her thoughts? She doesn't care for the yoke still. I want to know her thoughts on this.
She's still not really a fan of it, even though she saw me drive with it. She was asking me a lot of questions during the drive as well. She didn't drive it at all. She didn't feel like driving it. She felt like being a passenger, which is totally fine. As I'm
a passenger in my own life.
Right. As I said many times in the past, she's not interested in the yoke, whether it's in the Cybertruck or not, or in the S or not at all. I think my only reassurance to her is that the fact that the S and X now can come standard, or not standard, but they have the option for the steering wheel at no additional cost instead of the yoke, is good news for the Cybertruck. But still, she's just like, I don't care for the yoke. Whatever. I'm like, okay.
Right.
But for me, it was fun and interesting because I found initially during the drive, I was always going for the turning stalk to like turn left or right or change lanes, and it's not there. But instead, there's the buttons for the left turn, right turn. I found that pressing it was somewhat satisfactory. Okay. After I understood how to hit the buttons, or like just like to get in the mindset of I'm changing lanes, hit the button. I'm turning, hit the button, and all that. It's not reach for the stock and stuff like that.
I'm so used to stocks, though. That's messing with me.
Yeah, and I only experienced it for like 10 to 20 minutes probably. And still, like at the end of it, I think I've finally gotten to like the mindset of, okay, press the button when we're turning into the parking structure and all that. But otherwise, it was fun. It wasn't a plaid. It was a long range, but still it was a 0 to 60, I think in like 3.1 seconds. At one point, we put it in the, I think, was it like insane or whatever?
Ludicrous
mode. No, so there's no ludicrous in the Model S's anymore. There's different drive modes, right? There's chill, standard, or whatever. Maybe
and
that's
ludicrous.
Steering. There's no ludicrous anymore.
Well, I know, but I mean, like that's what it used to be after it. Chill, standard, ludicrous. That's how I remembered it.
Now I think it's insane or whatever. I'd have to look at the footage again. I probably have it up right now. But anyways,
chill, standard, cray.
Basically cray. And yeah, I punched it and also had it in the Max XL and sports steering and all that. And it goes. It reminded me of the Model 3 performance that I test drove a bit before we got the Y. And that thing was like, this is too quick and I love it. And driving this is like, this is too quick. This is amazing. It was awesome.
Nice.
But yeah, what was interesting was it was a white interior and all that. My wife and I both agreed we still probably would not go with a white interior after being in the Model S. There's just too much white reflecting light in our eyes, and I guess maybe it's just because we have blue eyes, or maybe we're just that sensitive to light or whatever. Or maybe we just like black and brown leather a little bit more than the white leather, or whatever you want to call it, the fake leather. Yeah. We found that we were not fans of it. It was too much.
I had FOMO about not getting the white interior at one point, and then the longer I had my black interior one, the happier I was that I had it, because I like maybe it is a lighting thing or whatever, because I have sensitive eyes and I don't go in the car without my sunglasses, and the whiteness, I forget who I was in someone's car. Somebody has a white interior and I don't remember who. It might have been my buddy Derek. It doesn't matter. The point is, I was in somebody's car and it was really distracting. Like I'm just driving. I'm just like, I'm picking up all this white in my peripherals, and it was kind of irritating to me. And I like the subtle, darker tones. I'd still take the green, interior of the Rivian, but
Oh, right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
Please. Let's have some class.
It's self-explanatory.
Right. But the white one, I don't know. Maybe I like the wood finish, the fake wood finish too. That feels nice. Maybe I'm just looking for reasons to justify not paying the upgrade, but anyway,
I do like the wood as well.
Yeah.
But there was some glitches that I found with the interface, which I found were very interesting. Like if you had a turn signal on, which then activates the blind spot camera to show on the display, but then you open up like the car menu to like look at like, I don't know, charging stats or like anything else like in the list of things, autopilot and all that, all the different things. The camera feed would still be there and blocking some buttons. So like if you wanted to open up the glove box or something else like that, there's like a camera feed stuck in the way. And the only way to access it would be to turn off your turn signal and then tap the button and then turn back on your turn signal. Because I tried tapping it and it wouldn't work through the side view mirror or side view camera to access whatever button is there. Yeah. So I found that was a little bit weird. Kind of like strange, right? Things that you don't really think about. Like with a huge display, you think, oh, you got so much space. But other times it's like, no, it actually makes sense to put like the side camera view in the center of the display, or like maybe a little bit offset to the left of the driver. But also when you open up a menu, it doesn't cover up that because it makes sense to show you that. So that way you can see maybe what's on your left or wherever, whether you're changing lanes or whatever. But now it's covering up options. So kind of weird.
Do you find yourself having, I wouldn't say like a panic about it, but do you find the lack of hardware overrides to be a possible issue? Or maybe because yeah,
not really per se. Again, like if you're buying a Tesla, you're going for minimalism. You're not really caring about buttons at this point. In fact, I think you get more buttons on the yoke or the steering wheel for the Model S and X than you do for a Model 3 in general for like amount of buttons in the interior that you can access. But even so, I think already like having the park reverse neutral drive options or whatever below the charging pad, I think that's enough for like just trying to get from A to B like in a car. But the display, of course, is that multi-tool for everything that you need, whether it's the maps or accessing the glove box or literally anything else. Stuff like that. So not really. Otherwise, steering with or like doing turns with the yoke was a learning experience. I can see why people like actually experiencing it now myself, literally firsthand or first and second hand, in a way. But actually turning that yoke was a bit of like, I'm reaching. Am I gonna hit it? There, now I've hit it. Now I'm reaching. Am I gonna hit it? Yeah, now I'm hitting it because you're focusing on the turn. You're not focusing on where the yoke is. You're just hoping that your hand hits it while you're turning the yoke to turn left or right. So that was like, yeah, this is kind of strange for like quick turns. I think they could easily benefit from drive-by-wire, kind of like what Canoe's aiming at with like being able to do quicker turns at slower speeds. So that way you don't have to turn it that much.
Yeah.
And try to figure out where your steering device or steering interface is located while you're mid-turn.
Yeah. I always felt like with the yoke, I haven't tried it yet, so I can't say. I mean, I've sat in one with the yoke. I haven't actually driven one. I always felt like with the yoke, I would do the palm technique, like somewhere on the base, like somewhere between, I don't know, 7 and 4. I would put my hand somewhere there and just use the palm, turn like that, and use that as my technique of turning. So that way I don't have to just kind of grab and turn, grab it, because I that would irritate me. It was like, oh, there we go. Oh. Yeah. You know, I feel like maybe a little palm. I don't know. Maybe Tesla got enough pushback from people who are spending $90,000 on a car. Like, hey, listen, give me a steering wheel. I'm not trying to fly a fighter jet here. I just want to. I'm not Maverick. I'm just trying to get to my job.
I do data entry. Both podcasts this week.
Yeah.
Anyways, I did also hit the brights when I was executing, I think, one turn or two turns. So it did happen where I accidentally hit a button, and thankfully it was not the horn. Well, I did notice though that I kind of missed after I was done with the test drive and got back in my Model Y was where my hands rest, right? So like when you think about when you're driving your car, like whether they're at 3 and 9, kind of like how the DMV wants you to drive and all that, and like maybe you're resting your thumbs kind of in that little pocket between where the spokes are for the steering wheel and where the round part of the steering wheel is. Like maybe your thumbs are in there and then your hands are kind of gripped there. Or they're a little bit above at like 10 and 2, or they're a little bit below, kind of resting on the bottom rim. I found with the yoke, it was nice just resting my hands on top and like kind of letting the sticky outy bits of the yoke kind of determine where my fingers rested. And it was just like, it was a lot more comfortable, even though like if you think about how you're holding your hands on like the daily, it's usually kind of like sideways, right? Or like palms inward towards your body and all that.
Yeah.
Where with the way that I'm describing the yoke, your wrists are rotated, so you're kind of like a T-Rex in a way. But it was somewhat more comfortable for me, at least, kind of resting my hands like that and just driving along with some slight corrections for like.
Hey, I get it.
With
the steering wheel now, I put my hands like this on the bottom. I kind of hook it on the bottom and I just rest my hands that way. Or where the two little balls are at, I put my hands kind of like that and I rest them as if they were the yoke right there, because I always want to know what that felt like. And that is a comfortable position. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I get a little bit of resistance with the steering, and I see it.
So that was something that I was pleasantly surprised by at the end. I'm like, I kind of missed that. This is not good. This is good. At the end of it, I was kind of glad that I was done with the test drive. It was fun. It was a great experience. If it's hard to say, like the inevitable question is, would you get a car with a yoke after that test drive, or would you get a Model S like with a yoke?
You personally would not get it.
It's tough to say.
I'll say it for you, because your wife is going to tell you no. She won't drive it.
Probably no. Realistically, probably not. I think it was a fun experience driving with the yoke. Like it was a nice, like, it's like when you drive a go-kart, or like when I don't know, when you're on a boat or something like that, and someone allows you to drive the boat and all that. Like it's fun, like experiencing that type of like scenario where it's a different steering input, or like just a different scenario than like the usual commute of driving your car. But it wasn't everything that, not to say everything that I wanted. And it wasn't like a spiritual awakening and all that. It was kind of just like, that was fun. All right, back to normal steering wheel and like normal driving. I like being able to like, I
think a go-kart is a good example. Or like for me, I not go-kart. I think like I have fun driving, a jet ski, but that's not my preferred commuter.
Right. Yeah. Talking about jet ski type of steering interfaces, like with Arcimoto and all that going out. They also had like the handlebar steering. And I always thought that's kind of like, it'd be quirky and fun, kind of like my short time with like the Twizy when I was on my honeymoon. Driving that, it was like, this is fun, but I don't want to drive this forever because it's limited to like 25 miles per hour, at least the one that I was in. And like all the other things, like the space of it, and like the Model Y is good enough and satisfies all my needs. But it was fun driving with the yoke, I guess, to give a takeaway message. It was fun. It was great to finally get it in my grubby little hands. Maybe not too little. I guess they're.
Well, how do you feel? A greater question, I guess. Actually, I got two questions for you. One, how did you feel driving the Model S as a whole, as that being a primary vehicle? And two, why were you driving the S over a different car? Was it because you just wanted to try out the yoke, or what was the intent with that?
So I wanted to try out the yoke. I've driven a 2016 or 2015 Model S before. So I've been in that ride height for a long period of time, because back when I first got my Y, it had some of the QC issues, and so they gave me a loaner Model S for a couple of days. So I've experienced that ride height. I'd say definitely the new refreshed S has a better seating feel. It felt a lot more comfier than the old one, but of course the old one is older, so it's been a little bit of a worn-in seat, and also just things get better with time usually. So I would say it was fun driving the S, and it was nice getting like that comparison of what like an early Model S is, with like it had that cloth like material, kind of like where your lower back meets the seat. Where this one in the new refresh is all fake leather or whatever it is, the vegan leather. But like seeing the differences between the two interiors, I didn't sit in the back, so I didn't really get to like enjoy the second, or I guess third screen in a way, the passenger rear screen and all that. I did notice you can turn it off for like kids in like the menu, which I thought was hilarious. Like, no screen time for kids, no changing your heated seats or air conditioning because you're abusing it, or like stuff like that. But I mainly just because it was a option, and it would be fun to drive a Model X, but I think I don't know. I'm a little bit too nervous to drive a Model X with like the price of it and also just like the size of it. And honestly, if I want to say it on the podcast, scared to like it. Because it was the car before the Y was announced. I'm like, so there's the Model S, the Model 3, and the Model X. I probably want to go for the bigger vehicle just because that sounds fun, because I could just haul a bunch of stuff. Like the Model X is probably going to be something I'll buy in the future. And then the Model Y comes out. I'm like, the price tag says it all.
Yep.
So they did have a Model X there. It was parked. I didn't see it move the whole entire time I was there, so I don't know whether an employee owned it or it was just something else. They did have all 4 cars in the showroom, which was very nice to see again, because for a long time, the past like 2 years, I think, or maybe a year and a half or something like that, it was only the Y and the 3. There was no S or X because it doesn't make sense to have an old model in the showroom for an S and X, and they didn't have any ready for the showroom for the new ones.
Well, now
so
that's
it was
sexy.
nice seeing all of them, right? Yeah, and they had it arranged in the old way that they had before. I'm like, yeah, this is great. But was cool kind of poking around the interior of the Model X that they had in the showroom, and I agree. If you were to get like a used Model X, you are definitely getting a lot, well, maybe not a lot more space than me, but you're getting a decent amount of space compared to the Y in regards to like how far deep it goes and the little side storages. And then also like you can fold down the seats and you still got a decent amount of room between the back of the storage space and the back of the second row. So, or I guess the front row if you've got a 7-seater. But
well, based off of the conversation we had last week, not a big update, but based off of what you and I have talked about off air, our priorities are just a little bit like if we don't buy the car that we want this year, then it's fine, because we want to allocate our money towards things that are important right now. So
right.
If that means other things have to take a compromise, we don't necessarily lose, because we still have, Phoenix at the end of the day. So that it's already there. We got one Tesla that's a good enough workhorse that can get everything done. When it comes to comforts and the luxury of having another vehicle, if that money can be better used elsewhere, then that's where it'll go. It's judgment call based off of what's for the good of the overall family, not necessarily just the commuting portion, when we already have at least one Tesla good to go. So if I don't get an X or a Y used anytime soon, I'm not stressing about it. Like I'm
right.
We're good. I like keeping my eyes on the market though, just to see how low those prices are getting. And
sure.
We'll see what happens in the future. I feel like a lot of people, something that I kind of took away from last week's episode, if anyone's in the market for a Tesla, like seriously look at the used inventory. That's actually pretty cool. I was pleasantly surprised how affordable relatively the Model Y 2020 was in comparison to like anything you would be buying new. I was like, oh, that's actually not that bad for everything that you're getting. And
you don't even have to look at Tesla's site. You can look at other sites like, I guess, Doug DeMuro's Cars and Bids site, or any other like third party that is selling cars. You can probably find. I mean, heck, what was it? I think it was that very same day that I test drove the Model S. We went further up on the east side of the bay, and we're over by like the Auto Mall in Fremont, kind of right by the Fremont factory. And almost every single dealership, Toyota, Subaru, Audi, all of them in that area, all had a Model 3 or Model S or a Model Y. No, I don't think I saw a Model Y, but at least a Model 3 and a Model S. At least one or two on each lot. I thought you could probably get an okay price for those, and they've probably been taken care of. If not, then the dealership has probably spruced them up to look a little bit better. So you could get a decent deal, assuming that the dealership isn't screwing you over.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing that I also want to add is that's not the end of my test driving tales. I did mention at the very beginning that I did test drivings.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so it wasn't a plaid Model X or Model X in general, like I said before. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes or the wool over your ears. I don't know. Listeners, viewers, however you are consuming this podcast. But was it before Christmas, I test drove a Polestar 2. Also in that very same area, and that was fun.
Ooh, tell me about this.
What was entertaining was like Tesla gives you like
is it the Polestar 2?
Is the Polestar 2. Their weirdly big sedan that looks like it's on a crossover skateboard chassis type of thing, but I guess not really because it's got like a battery tunnel in a way, but like they're making like the Polestar 3 that's supposed to be a crossover SUV that's on a different platform, even though they could have easily just reused their Polestar 2 platform, but I guess not. Anyways, what I was going to say is it's hilarious. Like Tesla just gives you the key card. It's like, do you know how to start the car? And then you're like, yeah. And then they're like, all right, have fun. Bring it back in one piece. See you in like 20 minutes or whatever. And that's it. Polestar was like, no, we are holding your hand the entire time. They immediately, like when I got on, they're like, all right, this is John, and John is going to be with you for the whole test drive. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Hi, John.
Cool. Hi, John. How's it going? And then, it was a different driving characteristic or different type of acceleration than I've felt in the Teslas, both in the S and the X. Or not the X. Well, I've driven the NACS. I've driven all of the sexy lineup at this point, I guess. But driving the Y, the S, and the 3 in recent history, comparing that to the Polestar 2, different behaviors in acceleration. It's not like the Polestar had like a delayed acceleration. It was a characteristic acceleration, or at least it had like a little pep in its step for how it went up the acceleration curve. Okay. I think what would be helpful is looking at the acceleration curve for a Polestar 2 and comparing it to a Tesla, whether it's Model 3 or Model Y or anything like that. But it definitely felt different, which was refreshing. But at the same time, it was a tad bit disappointing, or not disappointing, but like it felt out of the norm because of me accelerating my Y on my commute. And it's like, I know what I'm going to feel. Where in the Polestar it was unexpected, which was like, oh, cool, it's different. But at the same time, it's like, I kind of want more, or like something not like this. I guess it's kind of hard to describe in a way, like kind of calling me a hypocrite. Like you want something different, but you are experiencing something different, but you want it to be somewhat the same as, So that was kind of weird. The interior, meh. You see a Polestar on the road and like you look at it and you're like, that's a huge sedan. You get inside, you don't really have much room, or it doesn't feel like you have much room, even though like I'm a 6 foot guy. So like I'm like decently big. Yeah. It just felt like very enclosed. in which maybe that's just me going from a crossover to a sedan, but at least for me in my experience, it was just like I feel like I'm kind of being squished.
So I'm looking at the photos right now, and I take their words. They pride themselves on the minimalistic interior of it all, but is it just complete? Is it when I think of a minimalistic interior, I think of a Model 3. That's my thought. So what would you compare this to, and why are you against it? Are you comparing it to a Model S?
No, I would actually compare it to another car that I've test drove in the past, which was a Chevy Volt.
Oh,
in which
no.
I loved the Chevy Volt, the one with the V, so it was the sedan one that's been discontinued. That was a hybrid.
That was the hybrid
it
one.
It reminded me of that in regards to like not the interior, because the interiors are slightly different, but like just the feel of like where everything was in regards to like how you're sitting, where things sit around you, like the cup holders and all that, where the steering wheel sits in front of you, and like your view and all that. I don't remember
that
the
little
view
knob thing where you would shift the gears. I assume is very.
I didn't use that much, honestly. Like I barely even touched it, of course, because you can get it from like you driving a Model 3. Like you're not really touching the shifter too much, or like the shifting stock, like double down, I guess, for autopilot, but like otherwise just down for drive and up for
I just down once just to put in adaptive cruise control. That's good enough for me.
That works too. Yeah, but like in this, I don't think I didn't try the lane assist that it had, so I didn't really get the full experience.
Yeah.
The cup holder kind of sucks as well. There's just one. Unless you open up the armrest, then there's a second one in there. But then you have the armrest up. So I'm like, okay, this isn't fun for like having more than one person in there with drinks. Along with that, the screen was a little bit confusing. It was my first time with an Android-based screen that I was driving with. And I just got confused with like where things were. For instance, I was trying to find some menu. I was trying to find actually the map menu. So that way, like I can see like the little map in the middle, like I have on my Y, in which I guess that's maybe just my thinking of like I want a map in the middle. Instead, I have like the heads up, or not the heads up display, I forgot the specific name, the tachometer, no, the gear cluster. And I've got the gear cluster in front of me, or the heads up display, if you want to call it that too, but I usually attribute that to like the holographic one. Anyways,
that's what I think of when you use the
heads up display. Yeah. Anyways, you have the screen in front that also gives you a map with some stats. But the one in the center, like I couldn't really get to do anything with one guy distracting me, and then two focusing on driving. But like he put up like was it the G meter for me for a bit. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like the G meter, that's a little bit like a feedback of like what G's I'm pulling, I guess, or whatever. But I wanted like a map.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it. Kind of hard to find.
Does it not have Apple CarPlay?
It does, and I didn't have the chance to check it out because the guy wanted to get me in the car and get me out of it as quick as possible.
No, bro.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, I guess I won't connect my phone and try this out. Whatever. So that was kind of a bummer too. There is a few images I found online that like show here's the map, but I didn't have that. I had like music and some other options. I think it was like most recent options accessed, maybe, is probably what it was. And none of them were things that I wanted to access. So I was like, can I see something else, please?
Yeah.
So otherwise, it was not it wasn't a fun experience to me. It was interesting, but I stepped out of the car. I'm like, I'm glad this is over. I'm ready to move on to like the next thing that we're doing throughout the day, which was kind of a bummer.
So I want to pick your brain about a car I guess you haven't test driven yet because, well, obviously, I guess.
Let's see.
I know you haven't. No, it's that new Volvo.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I definitely haven't test driven it. Wink, wink. No.
Wait, have you?
Volvo. No, it's not out yet, and
No, I'm
Volvo
talking.
would not give me an
But
early.
the other one. Hang on. I was on their site.
So there's the XC40.
The C40.
So there's the C40. So there's an XC40, which is the the XC40 Recharge. Is basically electric version of the XC40, which is like the boxy look that Volvo has kind of fallen in line with for a long time now. Yeah. Or they're more modern cars. And then they made the C40, which is more like a crossover look with some weird like aero fins or whatever they are, aero surfaces coming off the roof. Anyways.
But Mike, look at this though. I just wanted to cite. I'm sending you a screenshot. What's so great about the C40 is their color option.
Oh yeah. It's very muted colors, but like at least they have more than 5.
But look at the name. I have to get it.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So I guess for listeners, the color is sage green.
That's the name of my son. Sage Green Vasquez.
That's his full name?
No, there's no. That'd be funny though. Sage Green Vasquez. No,
Dad, why is my middle name green? Because, son,
little green.
It's a good color.
He's my little green.
Oh.
It kind of looks. No, not literally this, but it looks tankish. Let me show you. I know there's an easy way to do this, but I'm kind of moving quickly while we're doing this on the fly. But look, I like the back end of this. I'm sending you another screenshot. I like how this Volvo kind of looks. I like the back end of it. It looks like sturdy. It just looks like. But I will be the first one to tell you that I have a bias with Volvo because I have good memories with a Volvo, and I'm secretly just a little bit biased, but I don't like the range of it, and I don't like the price for the range, and that's something I have to get over for myself because I've been spoiled with such a beautiful, palette of battery and everything with the Tesla. Like it's
right.
I'm spoiled, and I know I'm spoiled, and it's like it uses the wrong charging network. It has the wrong range, but it's a good-looking car. I'm excited about alternatives to Teslas because, we said, I'm sure last week, I like to see other people's takes on things. I like to see, all right, how are you gonna make it? The Volvo keeps its. Like you look at that's a Volvo one because they plastered the name right on the back of it, so you know it is. But I would look and be like, yeah, that looks like a Volvo. The Polestar is cool because it just looks something so unique. Sorry that you had a bad experience with it. I can't tell you that's a car I was jumping out of my seat to try to go get anyway because I'm so spoiled about. If Drew was here, he would say it's not about the range; it's about the charging efficiency, which I agree with. I do agree with,
and the network and all that.
The network to me, I think, is honestly, again, spoiled. I think the network's a deal breaker for me. The longer I think about it, unless it's a vehicle that I don't plan to take road trips on, because I'll charge at home and it's just meant to be an in-town car. In that case, a Volvo, a Kia, literally anything I would be more excited about trying or maybe considering getting because it's not something I have to worry about road trips and stuff like that. But I find myself in my life today taking a lot of road trips, and I have never been more grateful to have the supercharging stations just everywhere. Just plug in, grab and go, and then that's that. But
so much more convenient.
It is, but it's so cool to see these other cars and just see what they're doing, what their takes on it. I've become more of a car person because of what Tesla has done.
My adoption was the opposite. I think I've told this story maybe before, but my wife got me into cars because she liked cars and she wanted to talk about cars with me when we were first dating. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll watch this show called Top Gear or whatever that's on Netflix. And they had the first I don't know, I guess you can count on both hands.
It's the ongoing joke that Mike and I have, like the same wife, it feels like, or, our wives are the same because she's the car grease monkey in the relationship. She has always been about cars. It's like, whatever. Until Tesla came around, and then it's like we finally got to bond over something.
Yeah, right. So it is cool being able to see companies like Volvo and others enter the EV ring, and it's just what they bring, right? Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that a lot of them opt for the Electrify America route, in which, to be fair, it makes sense for a lot of these that like have been in development for a while and are finally seeing the light of day. Of course, they're going to go for Electrify America because just recently the NACS connector became open for use for companies to opt into and try out versus like make a deal with Tesla. So I wouldn't really fault it on other companies like Rivian or anything like that who were like, they wanted to put out a product and they wanted to put it out as efficiently as possible, like financially. Mm-hmm. So of course they're going to put on the J1772 plug or the CHAdeMO plug or the CCS2 or whatever it is here in the United States. Of course it's going to be like that because why would they would be sinking in so much money to put in the NACS connector before it was even called NACS, the Tesla connector, just to like put out a product that has good charging, but like kind of hard to sell it when you're already sinking in way too much money to this new kid on the block that just started selling a whole bunch of EVs and is somehow raking in a crazy amount of the capital from the market. Right. So I don't know. I do hope though that more companies opt into the NACS connector like how Aptera has, but Aptera has like a literal geometric reason. Like there's a size requirement that they need, a shape requirement that they need for their car, and the NACS connector is the only one that basically makes it like seamless and fluid and easy to integrate. Where
that's a good problem to have.
Other car companies can get away with J1772/CCS2 plug. Why not?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
How do you feel about well, it's a conversation starter actually, to be honest with you, because you're wearing all your Aptera gear today. What are our thoughts on Aptera this week?
Right, I got the little visor on. It's the dad look.
I just want, don't think it went unnoticed, Mike. I wanted to, we could talk about it. What are our thoughts on Aptera this week? How you feeling?
Got the shirt on as well. I'm pretty happy with them. It's been a very crazy week for them. Last week, I guess because the event happened right after we recorded the podcast on Friday, they announced the launch edition, which has 400 miles of range, only comes in Luna, which is their silver grayish look. And they announced initially only AC charging, which doesn't have a fast charging speed, along with one colored interior, which I think is the Codex, or I totally forget the specific name of it at the moment. Along with all-wheel drive and the full solar package, in which it's interesting that they chose this because that means a whole lot of the people that were ordering Apteras were choosing like that. This was the intersection of like popularity for all of them. And this is what's resulted in a Luna with 400 miles of range. Mm-hmm. The AC charging thing was out of everyone's hands, but made sense at the time to me that like, of course, like if you're cutting costs for like material and engineering and just complexity, sure, why not the launch edition, the first like 5,000 units or whatever it's going to be? Why not just limit it to AC charging, which means they only get like, I think 51 miles per hour max. Even when they're plugged into a supercharger, like they're only charging basically 50 miles an hour. It's just insane when you think about it, but like they're just a startup and they're making the most efficient thing and it has solar on it. I'm like, okay, well, you have to sacrifice something at some point. So it wasn't as controversial to me as it was to most people. I think I was that 1% in like everyone's polls that they made right after the event saying like, do you think Aptera should have DC charging included for the launch edition? And I was always like, no, I understand that it doesn't need it. But did you catch the event, Randy? Or
unfortunately,
I'm sure you probably watched the backlash.
I saw the backlash. That's what caught my like. Oh, what's going on here? But like you said, you said something very spot. It like something has to give. They're a startup. Like I'm not as offended as others came off like, oh, how dare! Like I just feel like expectations. Everyone like has such a high bar for these guys, and like I just want them to get off the ground as successful as possible. And if that means future generations get these improvements that we first thought you might get right off the bat, then fine. Like at least have a successful launch. They're not Ford or Volvo or Kia, but they're a startup. They're a startup, and people look like they were maybe being a little harsh with them, and and it's also just to refresh people's memories. Like this is not a car for most people too. The way it's built and designed and its use case and stuff like that, it shouldn't be your. I guess I shouldn't tell people what it should or shouldn't, but like I would never look at it as my primary vehicle. Like it's not. It's a good secondary. It's a good.
It doesn't have to be the Swiss Army knife for every circumstance.
It don't gotta be the Swiss Army knife for everything. We use that example for some. Was that the other podcast? We were talking about Swiss Army knife. I think it's the other podcast. Yeah, it don't gotta be like. If it can still meet the other goals that they've said, like, hey, here's what we can do and here's what we're aiming for, like, then it's gonna be so successful for its own. For people who care about the stuff that's on paper, the numbers and stuff like that, it's gonna be such a good, successful launch anyway. That it's like saying that, like, I don't know, it has all these things, but you're still using a lightning cable to charge it when you could use USB-C. Like, look, something had to give, cutting costs or something, like, just so we can make it more. For whatever the reason is, like, it's still a good, on paper, it still looks like a great car. So I don't know. I think people just, I get why people hold every other car manufactured to the same standard as Tesla, but just remember where Tesla's at right now and realize that Aptera hasn't, delivered their cars yet. They're a startup. It took a long time for Rivian to get to the point where they're at right now, like you can go the way of a Rivian or you can go the way of a Lucid or something. We got to sell this or sell that or a Nikola and just everybody gets robbed in that scenario. Right. So anyway, it's a bit much, but yeah.
I thought, I think we're in agreement that we were okay with what it was going to be for a launch edition for 5,000 orders, and it made sense. I mean, I think what really was a slap in the face for them, though, was the amount of outrage, like the outspokenness of the community just being like, no, we're not going to accept just AC. We need DC charging. And enough to where there's maybe a lot of people who canceled because they're just like, I don't want this then. And so Aptera probably saw some numbers going down, and they saw a lot of people saying, why would I get this then online? So they're like, okay, well, let's think about it, right? And so after a couple days, continuing this narrative in the story, they decided, okay, I guess we'll include DC charging. Right. And then actually what was nice is instead of just tweeting it out saying, all right, I guess we'll include DC charging, the end. And then everyone's very confused. Like, were you just trying to be cheap with us or something like that? Instead, they're like, no, here's actually like the reasoning behind us choosing AC charging. And it was all because they wanted to do DC charging at first, but they wanted to do it with the Tesla connector. Yep. And they knew how to do it with the CCS2, but they didn't. There's a lot of red tape in regards to the Tesla port, or I guess the NACS port as it's called now, and understanding like how power is delivered through it and like the pins and everything. Like there's fundamental ideas, but like there's specific numbers that they were looking for, and they didn't know if they could meet those specific numbers with the launch edition. So they said, okay, we'll just cut it off. But they put that on the shelf a long time ago, or maybe not a long time ago, but earlier in production. But they already did some of the work. But after all this outrage, they're like, all right, let's just dust off that shelf, blow off all the dust bunnies and all that. And, oh, yeah, this is what we did. I guess since the NACS port, we know, like, the patent's open and we can look at it and we can integrate it. We now know, like, how to integrate it to this. And, yeah, it's going to cost a little bit more in parts, and there's going to be a lot more copper to include and also wiring and all that. But if it means we get more orders...
Yeah.
kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a necessary cost initially, but I think, was it Drew or Aptera Owners Club? Someone said this, and they made a good point, is that it's better to integrate it now when there's no product yet. So that way it's not something you have to retrofit later.
Right.
Or figure out later in production cost in retooling your lines to put this thing in. Instead, the DC charging is going to be there from the ground up, so they're always going to have that. And the only improvements that they have to do probably is going to be software-wise for the charging, or maybe just improvements for safety, or just for better use later down the line when they find electrical wiring improvements.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very interesting, just like turn of events in the next, like, and all around, like, I don't know, it seemed like 3 or 4 days. It was probably somewhere around there, but like, it seemed very quick that they turned around and like acted on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of also the beauty of being a startup, and they're being so small that it doesn't have you. We'll talk about it for the next fiscal quarter, and we'll talk about that. Like, it's something that can happen relatively quickly, but I kind of feel like, I don't know, like maybe my headspace about why I feel like it was blown out of proportion is because my headspace is still like, we're early adopters. You have to be susceptible for all these adjustments and stuff like that. You can't be rigging and expect the final product and to be the perfect product. Like, I had years of refinement. Like, in anything goes through major revisions time and time again, and it's always being refined. There is no final version. It's just, here's what we're launching now, and here's what we'll fix later. So to me, with Aptera, especially because, you know, they're just, maybe I'm also being biased because they're a San Diego company. Maybe, I don't know. I just feel that like we're early adopters, all of us, and so the people who are lashing out are either early adopters. It had to be that people were canceling their orders, because online backlash to me, I feel like, wouldn't be enough. I would have been like, guys, it's fine. Here's X, Y, and Z, like what you're saying. Like, here's why it was, you know, be this way. It's fine. We'll be okay. But if it got to the point where, like, well, then I don't want it. Well, then people are voting with their dollar, you know, and that's how you move anything forward. So, in my headspace, I don't know if I would have cared, to be honest with you. I don't think I would have cared.
Okay.
For the launch edition.
Would you have been less likely to get one? Like, if the option appeared to you that, like, oh, I could get an Aptera for like 250 miles to like cruise around wherever you live whenever you get the money to buy or just afford fun toys or like fun vehicles like the Aptera.
I look at the Aptera as a toy. I do. I see it as a toy kind of first. Not the kind of toy I would take out to the dunes and bring my quad and just go crazy, but I don't see it as the same space as a sedan, because it's not. I don't see it as a family car, because it ain't. I see it as like, this is a cool little, oh shoot, I'm gonna go to the beach and let me just bring this little, you know, it's just an out in town area. I say beach, you know, living on the water, you know, but like it's an outdoor, like, what car do I feel like taking out today? And you want to. Some people want to ride their old Model Ts around or something, and my version would be that. That's my Model T. I just want to drive around town. I'm gonna go to Target in this car because I like driving with it, and then that's that. That's how
It's
I
the
picture it.
Bugatti to get groceries in.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, to answer your question, like if there was an option for it. A part of me would like being realistic. Like I would be the guy who wants. I'm the guy who wants the longest range possible, so I can have the headspace to with the battery degrades over time. I can still have enough battery to get around, and
Mm-hmm.
them saying like, "Hey, we can get these types of miles." Like those are cool numbers,
Yeah.
and I. But I don't. But those numbers don't matter to me for a secondary vehicle. It mattered to me for the primary vehicle. It mattered to me for the Model 3, and that's probably the last car that it will matter to me for. So I guess honestly, any additional car afterwards would be about charging efficiency. So I would care about the charging speeds. But the Aptera is a toy. Like that's the toy car. My son wants to take out his little kid truck that's also charged, plug into a wall. He's driving around, riding the cul-de-sac. He wants to do that, and then I want to do my version of that on the adult scale. It's the same thing. Just want to drive in
Yeah.
circles.
Right.
Sometimes I get in the Model 3 and I just go for a drive because I want to. I want to listen to some music or listen to a book, and I want to drive around because I'm stir crazy. And I do that with the Model 3, and that's what the Aptera would replace in my life. Just going out for a cruise and just relaxing. So
Sure.
I don't know. So maybe the answer to your question would be whichever is cheapest.
Right. Because I guess going for like the 250-mile range one that starts at like around $26,000 or whatever. But
Yeah.
like you said, you like the overhead with the range, so going for like the 1,000-mile one would be cool, but it costs like $45,000.
Yeah.
The one thing that I do that everyone isn't really focusing on, in my opinion, or at least something that I've been kind of like happy about, is that they finally updated the configuration page for the Aptera. So now like it's a little bit more accurate to what Delta is, or I guess the launch edition looks like, and then you can also deviate it to be something that's not the launch edition, but what will be your potential product later. And I just love that the interior is a little bit more accurate to what it is now, but also like the differences that the color makes for the interior is a little bit entertaining to me.
Yeah.
That the only thing that looks like that changes is just like the cup holder metal bit area, like the center console where you put your cups, and that's the only thing that changes in color when you change the interior color. Otherwise, it looks like everything stays roughly the same. And that's it, which is a great way to cut costs. But
Hey,
it's
look,
a
a
nice
yoke.
way to like, yeah, I know, right? A yoke. A little bit different, right? It doesn't have like the little buttons like the Model
No, it looks
3
like a
and Y
face.
now.
A happy face.
Yeah, it's like a little Oreo cookie with a horn on. It's like winking at you, kind of. You got like the little plus sign, minus sign on one side, and then you got like the little
looks
horn
like
on
this.
the other. So it's basically, basically. But I do like the fact that it's been updated finally. It's been like a long time since they first showed the configuration page. You're like, oh, cool. And now it's like, oh, well, here now it's updated, and you can actually see what you're probably going to get at the end of the day in like a year or so.
Yeah.
I guess it depends what you're getting. If you're getting the launch edition, might be a year. If you're getting anything that's not the launch edition, probably going to be a couple years, but they'll get there eventually, at least as long as they get their funding, which it sounds like it's going to be an uphill battle for funding. I forget. I took notes somewhere, but like they've raised like I think 50 mil or something like that, and they still have 70 or 80 mil for production to start.
Yeah.
So they still got a ways to go. I might be wrong on those specifics, but they've got an uphill battle. But I would be lying if I was saying I wasn't rooting for them every step of the way, because they're a pretty cool company, and I do think that there is definitely a future where Aptera can operate in and exist and be celebrated, and also just improve the way people drive, or at least like the way people think about driving and all that. So
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
I like it. I appreciate the updated configurator.
Right. Do you have any final thoughts, Randy, before we end it here today?
Oh, should I say it? I'm gonna say it.
Do it. Why not? Maybe we'll make it a whole weekly thing, since it's the year of the Cybertruck, kind of.
I refuse to become that tacky. I'm not gonna say it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the Roadster, what will happen, but I am worried about the Cybertruck.
I knew it. I will say, one little clarification for the last episode. If people were confused at the very beginning when I had a Nikola on the side of my face, I realized that I mixed up two different podcasts. At the end of the tech podcast, I made a weird, funny bit, offhanded comment saying, "Oh no, maybe next time you see me, I'm going to be missing half my face," or whatever. But I appreciate everyone for welcoming me with open ears. And hopefully, if I'm still here next year, if I don't lose the rest of my body when I lose half my face, that. And I didn't realize that until after recording the last podcast that we had, I guess the first podcast of this year, that it didn't make sense for EV because that comment was made on the tech podcast. So
you were playing chess and I'm out here playing poker.
Right. Something. So if you're confused, I am now both embarrassed and something that will probably never be erased off the internet, and we can just laugh at me and be very both confused and entertained at the fact that Mike can't get his podcast straight. And that's all right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us this week, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back next week, and hopefully full staff. If not, we'll have more fun stuff to talk about.
Always something new in the EV space.
Always.
But otherwise, thanks for joining us. Have a good rest of whatever day, night, or morning you've got.
That's right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. What if this made like a blooper reel? He snuck it in. Oh, God, I hope not. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. Today is gonna be the day, but they'll never throw it back to you. By now, you should have somehow realized what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. Because they sound like they're nasally. And all the roads we have to walk are winding.